And that's exactly what has happened. There are fans leaving the stadium now because they have just had enough.
In 2001, Tottenham Hotspur were mid-table, ran by an owner that openly did not enjoy football.
It was a horrible time in my life, horrible. The biggest mistake of my life, giving 10 years to that football club.
Had their captain and star player drop them and join their biggest rivals for free.
What about your situation, Sol? Will you be staying at Tottenham?
I'm staying.
Helping them win the league unbeaten. Fast forward a generation and they are the most profitable team in England. Owners of the most expensive stadium in the capital city of the country with the most popular football league. Champions League regulars, winners of European silverware, and for some reason, Batista and John Cena's favorite team. So, why do people not take them seriously? A fair question. And honestly, the answer is that there are levels of being bad in this game. There's lose a game bad. There's lose a couple of games bad. Then there's lose enough games and be so questionable that Swedish members of parliament use your likeness as an example of how not to run an organization.
Jag tänker osökt på Tottenham Hotspurs, även kallas Spurs. Det är en av Englands mest anrika klubbar, en rik förening med en enorm arena, trogen och omfattande supporterskara. Ändå befinner sig Tottenham just nu i kris. Klubben har till och med gett detta ett eget begrepp, Spursy. När man har möjligheter, man får inga resultat.
Spursy. The speaker encapsulates the term quite well. Spursy is an all-encompassing phrase. It represents the essence of Tottenham Hotspur, the ability to get into advantageous positions, the inevitability in squandering the advantage. And quite frankly, going from arguably their most successful season in the past few decades to whatever the hell this is, immediately is so Spursy. In the words of a wise Italian poet, quote, "It is the history of the Tottenham," end quote. Again, don't take my word for it. Listen to how those that have been on the inside speak about the organization.
I hope the Tottenham fans don't get me wrong, but the only club in my career where I don't have still a deep feeling is Tottenham.
Another alibi. You try to find alibi or an excuse for the players. Okay, continue to do this. This is the first time in my career to see a situation like this.
Why, Antonio?
Why? They don't want to play under pressure. They don't want to play under stress. Tottenham's story is this.
But when you look at the expenditure, particularly in their wages structure, they're not a big club. I saw that because when we were trying to sign players, we weren't in the market for those players.
Just look at Thomas Frank. He was actively switching sides while on the job. The ownership is a mess, switching seats and personnel all while making things worse. The players are a mess, entitled, hot-headed, lacking belief, making schoolboy mistakes, probably already begging their agents for a way out. That's of course if they're even capable of staying fit. The medical staff is a mess. Somebody check their credentials. There are also no leaders remaining in the squad. As soon as both Harry Kane and Heung-min Son were out the door, what you're left with are players with abysmal disciplinary records, openly disrespecting the manager and hierarchy. The fans look like they're attending a funeral from about the 50th minute onwards in every game, which is wild considering the fact that according to UEFA's latest benchmarking reports, Spurs have the 5th highest gate revenue in Europe, which means exactly what you think it does. The fans are paying to put wrinkles on their foreheads. It may not look like it at times, but obviously Tottenham Hotspur is a massive football club, which is what makes this entire situation so crazy. And over the course of this video, we'll be detailing just how big they truly are, suggest a few reasons why things don't seem to be working anymore, and in turn detail how big the opportunity they're currently working so hard to fumble truly is.
Do you know Tottenham?
What?
Tottenham Hotspur?
Hotspur?
No.
What's that?
Hello all, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I'm Tinashe. Subscribe if you haven't. In honor of Spurs, here's a picture of a baby chicken to sweeten the deal. To kick things off, I feel obliged to note how impressive it is that Spurs are where they are in the first place. Out of all the teams in the English Premier League that are amongst the top 20 highest earning clubs in the world, only Tottenham Hotspur and West Ham United are majority English owned. Spurs not only make more than double that of West Ham, but also own their own stadium. although the two have a lot more in common. Some might call what I'm about to say sacrilege, but if you were to take into consideration many of the things that football fans claim to care most about, then Spurs would tick more boxes than most. They don't have endless oil money, seemingly endless American private equity money, or massive legacy global commercial and branding machines. They are a self-sustaining business that built their own pathway through clever deals and international expansion, and for the longest time, they were owned and actively ran by a lifelong fan. They also never sell to direct rivals. He doesn't count, he wasn't sold. Ask yourself, how many plastic glory-hunting Spurs fans have you met? Of course, we're going to be critiquing Spurs quite a lot in this episode, and those critiques might even serve to weaken the sympathies I've just offered. I just feel it's important to know the full context before going into what we're about to go into, and trust me, there is a lot to critique here. For example, we can start with the ownership that I just spoke so admirably about. Spurs are owned in majority by the Lewis family, first acquired by billionaire Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy through ENIC Group in 2001, the same Joe Lewis that pled guilty to insider trading between 2013 and 2021 in the United States. Lewis allegedly frequently tipped off employees, associates, friends, even girlfriends with non-public information about various entities. One sealed indictment states that he loaned the pilots of his private jet £500,000 each to buy a stock before it took off. Luckily, he transferred his ownership of ENIC, the holding company which owns Tottenham Hotspur, to his family trust the year before any convictions were made. This was enough to satisfy the Premier League decision makers and avoid action being taken against Spurs. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. But we're here to talk about Spurs first and foremost, not the owner's private affairs, rather inside affairs. So an appropriate place to go to from here is to look at the club's off-field performance and inner workings. And there is no better place to look at than the man who holds the record for the longest running chairman of a Premier League football club, Daniel Levy. 24 years, a mere quarter century within which Spurs grew to a level that I doubt anyone could have imagined. Despite this, he was unceremoniously sacked in mid-2025 and reportedly not even allowed back in the Spurs training center to pack up his office. His belongings were returned via home delivery. It seems he held less influence than we all thought. For so long, before all major decisions that were finalized around this club went into action, they had to go through one man. Despite ENIC Group only establishing a significant stake in Tottenham Hotspur in 2001, Daniel Levy's involvement in the club dates back to his childhood as a lifelong supporter of Spurs. By the mid-90s, he had formed a close business and personal relationship with Joe Lewis, becoming the managing director of ENIC Group in 1995. The company was then converted into a sports and entertainment company and began buying up land and football clubs. At one point, the organization held stakes in clubs all across Europe: Rangers in Scotland, AEK Athens in Greece, Slavia Prague in the Czech Republic, FC Basel in Switzerland, Vicenza in Italy, and of course, Tottenham Hotspur. UEFA's rules do not allow clubs with the same ownership to compete in European competitions, so eventually, all eggs were placed in Tottenham Hotspur. From 2001 to 2025, Levy held the role of club chairman, handling the day-to-day operations. And in that time frame, Spurs have blossomed into something truly substantial. The club have climbed the Premier League ladder and went from perpetual mid to lower mid-table finishes to consistent top 6 between 2010 and 2024. In that 14-year time frame, they only finished outside the top 6 twice: 7th in 2021, 8th in 2023. They reached a Champions League final. The best English player of his generation and the country's highest goal scorer of all time came from their academy. Spurs' annual revenue has grown eightfold, from £77 million when ENIC took over to £565 million as of the latest financial records. Over the entire Daniel Levy era, Tottenham Hotspur were the most profitable Premier League side. At one point, they were described as having the highest net profit of any team in the world. And to put all of this into even more perspective, they have achieved all of this while being comfortably the lowest earners amongst the so-called top 6 up until as recently as 2018. Of course, the main reason for this is that their wage bill consistently fell short of their contemporaries. For example, in the 23-24 season, their wages to revenue ratio was 43%, the lowest in the entire league. Only Luton Town could match them, and Luton were operating at almost 4 times less revenue. Under Daniel Levy, sitting across the table from him in the negotiation room has been something that struck fear in even the bravest of men. Sir Alex Ferguson once claimed that negotiating with Daniel Levy over the transfer of Dimitar Berbatov back in 2008 was, quote, more painful than my hip replacement, end quote. You have to imagine the same went for players already at the club wanting a raise. To paint you a picture, Moussa Dembele, Heung-min Son, and Jan Vertonghen were reported to have been on £55,000, £85,000, and £89,000 a week in 2018-19. Spurs had maintained top 3 finishes and got into a UCL final in the 4 years leading up to this one, with these guys being a big reason for it. In contrast, Marouane Fellaini cleared 100k a week at Manchester United. Henrik Mkhitaryan cleared 200k a week at Arsenal. Not only was Levy hard to deal with, he also never felt the pressure to spend like his opposition, believing that Prem spending was unsustainable. Signing nobody in the 2019 summer window is the ultimate showcase of this mentality. All of this makes Spurs' achievements in the late 2010s all the more impressive. However, it's not hard to argue that this line of thought has come at a huge opportunity cost. It's not a stretch to say that proper researched investment in the team when it was at its peak in the Premier League era, or when they made the UCL final, or say after winning a Europa League title, could have made them permanent top contenders. It's only recently that they've dusted off the war chest and splurged a little bit on players and wages. The only issue is that even when they've done so, the incoming players haven't necessarily had the desired effect. We'll continue that line of thought in the next chapter, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. What's quite funny is that on the surface, Spurs being criticized for their lack of spending has been an ongoing meme, but in reality, it's quite the irony, as the club holds the highest amount of debt of any team in the league. In the ballpark of £1.2 billion worth, give or take, depending on the source, comes directly from the construction of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. White Hart Lane was the home of Tottenham Hotspur from 1898 through to 2017. It housed Spurs through all their greatest moments, winning league titles, growing the fan base. But it was holding the team back at only 36,000 in capacity and in dire need of a facelift. In stepped the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, opened on the 3rd of April 2019, London-based, 63,000 in capacity, making it the 3rd largest stadium in London and the most expensive stadium in Europe at the time it was constructed. It is the host of up to 30 major non-football events per year, including NFL matches, concerts, and boxing events. This is Daniel Levy's legacy at Tottenham Hotspur as chairman. The stadium came at a large cost, but the payback has already been undeniable. In 2017, matchday revenue accounted for £45 million for Spurs. Fast forward to 2025, and that number shot up to £126 million. And seeing how the debts were taken out under very low fixed rates, the expectation is that the stadium is guaranteed to pay for itself. Maybe guaranteed isn't the right word here. Spurs, of course, need to remain in top competitions to get the full benefits of the broadcast and matchday potential of their primed asset, something that is not guaranteed. Otherwise, they risk having built a coliseum despite their warriors being unfit for battle. After running such a tight ship, cutting costs to build the foundation, and culminating in decades of shrewd business, Levy had done all the hard work. Now he wanted to push on. It's the classic "what got us here won't get us there" conundrum. Quote, "To capitalize on our long-term potential, to continue to invest in the teams and undertake future capital projects, the club requires a significant increase in its equity base. The board and its advisors are in discussions with prospective investors." End quote. These words were taken directly from Levy in Tottenham Hotspur's announcement of their 2023 financial year results. Maybe he's onto something. Obviously, blind spending serves to benefit nobody, but there are certain spending metrics that often appear to be indicative of on-field performance, such as not just giving away fat checks, but acquiring talent that truly commands it. As we saw in the chart earlier, there were 6 teams in the Premier League that spent more on wages than Spurs. It's a trend that continues to remain that way. The usual bunch and Aston Villa. Newcastle United lagged behind Spurs by a mere 3 million. And if we take a look at the overall combined Premier League table since 2019, when Villa were promoted, Spurs' Big Six claim is slowly losing strength in the long term. If we take a look at the same table since Newcastle were taken over in 2022, a grim picture starts to take shape, not only for Spurs. The point is that it appears that all of this led Levy to being heavily interested in an external injection. Over and above that, there have constantly been hints that the relationship between Levy and the Lewis family was strained in the final years. According to the BBC, Levy felt as though he was operating with one hand tied behind his back for several years at Spurs due to the lack of external investment. There have even been some hints that Levy's intention in gaining external investment may have been a bit more underhanded at one point, that he was hoping to gain favor with said potential investors and increase his own influence within the organization. Remember, the split of ENIC is 70-30, and he is the 30. But it was the football right here, right now, that served as the most widely reported catalyst for Levy's dismissal. Joe Lewis has previously infamously maintained a low profile and hands-off approach to ownership over the last decades, opting to watch games from his home in the Bahamas or his £300 million yacht, as some sources phrase. His family have similarly not been in the headlines too much pertaining to the team. Recently, however, Lewis family members have been seen in attendance at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. After watching the team fall further and further down, an independent review of the club's inner workings was commissioned and concluded that Levy's methods in running the club were no longer effective. Reports suggest the review found that Levy's presence had become, quote, divisive, and that his negotiating style was actively damaging the club's ability to attract top-tier talent and commercial partnerships. Remember, Levy is a part owner. Very few other teams have their owners actively running the club on a day-to-day basis. Some separation was deemed to be in order. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly how true everything we see in the news is, but I guess none of that actually matters, because all that we're left with are the facts. The 2023 financial results were released in April of 2024. Over the next year, the Lewis family moved to restructure the club's executive organogram entirely. A chief executive officer was put in place, the first time Spurs have had someone with that title in the Lewis era. That would be Vinay Venkatesham, formerly Arsenal CEO during the club's ascent back into the game's elite. After 14 years with Arsenal, encompassing various roles, he took on a new challenge. Peter Charrington, a former Citibank global head and friend of Joe Lewis, was installed as the new chairman, and Daniel Levy was sent packing. Well, apparently the packing was done for him. So now one of the main reasons for Spurs' incredible achievements is gone, and the team has been in freefall. Granted, he is also labeled as one of the main reasons for the freefall. Spurs fans, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Let us all know. Regardless, the team has a brand new look, new public faces, ownership presence. So no more yacht viewings, I guess. Although that's probably because the yacht was used as make-weight for Lewis's bond payment in his insider trading charge. Gone are the days of a single figure being the lightning rod for praise, resentment, or indifference. In the meantime, Spurs are now left to build up new rapport, new relationships, new dynamics. The problem, however, is that these dynamics have not been up to scratch at all. The team is more disjointed than ever. Every pivot that the team has done in reorganization has so far failed. From not addressing the defense in January, to appointing Thomas Frank and then Igor Tudor, both coaches with similar philosophies in terms of pragmatism and expecting things to change, to letting Brennan Johnson leave without a replacement in mind in the middle of an injury crisis. And if relegation actually does beckon and not only Champions League revenue but Premier League revenue falls away, we will be faced with a meltdown of biblical proportions. There seems to be an inclination to not repeat the habits of the past in terms of penny pinching. Signing Conor Gallagher for £35 million in January 2026 on what's reported to be $200,000 per week is possibly a showing of what's to come. Granted, Gallagher may not be the profile of player they need most, and spending big money on him when they already have a lot of hard-working midfielders who lack creativity did not inspire confidence from the fan base. And this signing is only part of a trend of increased spending, which I guess a lot of people may say is good, but the timing is just a shame, isn't it? Realizing what needs to be done when on-field performances have crashed through the floor, relegation is a threat, and their negotiating strength for top talent is waning. Better late than never, I guess, is what I would say if the signings had been of the quality that they desired. 8 of their top 10 most expensive signings have all come from 2022 onwards, with the only exceptions being Tanguy Ndombele and Davinson Sanchez in 2018 and 19. Not many hits on this list, but these are good players, aren't they? At least they were thought of as such before joining. Perhaps it's the managers at fault. They've tried almost every archetype of manager over the last few years. Masters of harambol, enjoyers of all-out attack, the pragmatic type, the type renowned for their versatility and getting the best out of the available tools. You'd think that the last one was the one that would have the highest hit rate, wouldn't you?
If they want to continue in this way, they can change manager, a lot of manager, but the situation cannot change, believe me. Thank you very much.
He's not wrong. Spurs has no shortage of past players, even active players, laying similar complaints. When referring to the heights Spurs reached in the late 2010s, Hugo Lloris, former goalkeeper, once stated that he felt Spurs were just happy to be there. In his autobiography, Hugo Lloris recounted that when Spurs made the Champions League final, Daniel Levy had gotten the entire team luxury aviator watches with Champions League finalists written on them. In Lloris's own words, quote, "Who does such a thing at a moment like this? I still haven't gotten over it, and I'm not the only one." End quote. Christian Romero, currently the captain of the club at the time of recording, constantly seems to be both apologizing to the fans and taking shots at the club in every other Instagram post. Again, he's the captain. There is very clearly a mentality issue here, a lack of belief, a feeling that many thought would have improved after actually winning something. It did not. A very common opinion among Spurs managers is that the players just seem to be broken. After literally one game in charge, Igor Tudor relayed the exact same sentiment.
Where is our goal? Where is the goal of this club? Where is the goal of this team? Where is the goal of this coach and of this player? And all stuff. To become serious, not just a group of 20 players. And the medicine is you look in the mirror and really try and really start to change the habits, working hard. That's the only way.
One game in charge? How is it even possible for a club to do this to a man? Mourinho and Conte have both fired shots in all directions at Spurs. Players, owners, they've all gotten a taste. Postecoglou did not badmouth the players as much as some of his contemporaries, directing most of his criticism towards the owners and board. Sometimes even the fans instead. After a 2-0 defeat to Manchester City in the 2023-24 year, Postecoglou was visibly shaken by the atmosphere within the club, where some fans celebrated the loss because it hurt Arsenal's title hopes. This was the second last game of the season, and if Spurs had won that match, they would have secured Champions League football. It speaks volumes about general fan expectations. The problems for Postecoglou, for Thomas Frank, for Conte, for Mourinho, they've been the same across all tenures. Lack of desire, lack of support. None of them have been perfect. All had their own flaws and deserve blame for what led to their dismissals, but that doesn't really change the general pattern. Even the Europa League win was somewhat of an anomaly. Again, don't get me wrong, tremendous achievement, silverware is silverware. True to his word, Postecoglou always wins in his second season. He just needs to make it to his second season. This was not an anomaly because I'm trying to poke fun at Tottenham Hotspur. It was an anomaly because never in the history of the Europa League, previously the UEFA Cup, has a team finished so low in their domestic league. The team that came closest was Inter Milan, who finished 13th in 1994 while winning the UEFA Cup. They too were relegation threatened, so I guess it evens out, you know. And another thing is that we also can't look past the fact that victory in the Europa League was ultimately won against maybe the only manager of a major football club that was even more stubborn than Postecoglou about how his team should play. The real irony here is that Spurs won that final because Postecoglou decided to ditch his all-out attack approach for a more pragmatic one. Perhaps he should have done so at an earlier stage of the season. At the end of the day, this club has a lot of past mistakes to learn from. They very well could produce a comeback for the ages in the coming years. Who knows? What we do know is that people will likely continue to not take them very seriously until something changes, and quick. And there we have it. If you want to support the channel or just want to view these videos early for free, you can check out my Patreon linked in the description. Thanks to everyone that's already signed up. It goes a long way to aid the editing and researching that goes into these, which I'm constantly trying to improve. That's all for me today. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.